Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay at home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight, got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet, cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Home Dad Chat. Man, I have Danny with me. This is quite interesting because we missed last week with you all because life happens and so does COVID. And I'm pretty much sure that the shirt "COVID sucks" is probably selling out everywhere. Danny's probably put some stock into it after this past.
Yeah, I'd buy one for sure. For sure. Yeah. That was
um,
it was a rough patch for me.
I'm gonna knock on wood that I haven't really had to deal with it. Although my friend thinks that back during Christmas time, I probably had it and didn't like get tested for it because it just felt like a common cold. So
Mhm. I've heard that a lot, and I've seen it like with the kids and with other friends, and they were like, "Well, I finally got tested, and they didn't have it." And I'm like, "Well, yeah." So I checked my kids, like checked one of my oldest this morning because he wasn't feeling well. I'm like, "No, no, we got an at-home test. Let's do this thing." And he doesn't. He tested negative, and I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, he's only got a sore throat and fatigue, and maybe that's just a cold. Maybe it's strep throat. Maybe it's tonsillitis. I don't know. So,
who knows? Yeah.
you know, it's tough. It's hard to navigate.
But hey, man, I'm glad to have you. Glad to have you back. And you look
Yeah,
look like you got your energy back, or not
no,
really. But
that's a fake. I just enjoy being here. That's all.
yeah. Well, you know
That
what it
is kind
is.
of all it is.
You get behind the microphone and all of a sudden it's like energy boost and then afterwards you're like you fall asleep immediately.
Yep, I'll be asleep in my chair.
It's all good. But hey man, yeah, it's definitely been an interesting past couple of weeks. I think that probably the most wild thing that's taken place is the fact that I sadly had to watch the Bengals lose in the Super Bowl on Sunday. So that
Yep.
was rough. Had to console a 9-year-old who had just picked the Bengals as his team and was very excited
Oh,
for them. I mean, we've lived here for quite a while. We're not going anywhere, so it's kind of a perfect fit for him. But
so I
yeah,
don't. But with the Bengals, it doesn't he just? I mean, and that just what he's going to get used to.
yeah, there's a lot of that. That's that has
I
been
don't
the
know.
no, no, you're
It was an
fine, you're
easy
fine.
shot. It was a
Yeah,
grapefruit. I had to
no,
hit it.
you definitely hit the pot shot for sure on that one. So, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, 30 some years without a Super Bowl appearance or and playoff appearances is sporadic, but
It is
um,
huge that they went this year. That
it
is,
is.
it really is fantastic. And win or not, I still think from what I've looked at the highlights of it, because I was sleeping through the whole thing. They really did put in their effort to get there and to get through the game.
Hmm.
I think they did. You should be proud of them,
Oh, we
win
are.
or
Yeah.
not. You know.
Definitely proud of them. I'm definitely proud of the way that they've handled it. And then on top of it too, I mean, some of these players, because of the contract that the rookies signed for 5 years with the team that drafts them, like, Joe Burrow is going to be around for a while. Jamar Chase is going to be around for a while.
Good. Good.
Our Money Mac, Evan McKenzie or Evan McPherson, the kicker, who he one thing that he did was is he tied Adam Vinatieri's single postseason record for field goals in a postseason
Nice.
at 14. He's a rookie and he did that. So um,
Wow.
so that's pretty impressive too. So I mean, from everything from comeback player of the year with Joe Burrow, outstanding rookie of the year with Jamar Chase, and then, to have Evan to be able to do that tie with Vinatieri, and it is a very impressive team, and I think that this will not be the last time that you see them in a playoff plus
Mhm.
Super Bowl run. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the hunt next year. Honestly, they're just that tough of a team, and if they pick up the right O line for this year, we will be a super force to be reckoned with. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And the thing is, you have a good team, even if they're not, in the Super Bowl every year from now on, which I honestly, for you, hope they are. but you do have a better team and people that you can get behind and root for and watch them play well and watch them win. That's going to be very encouraging, especially for your son.
Yeah. Well, and just for the city as a whole, it was exciting to see the city just light up with excitement. People coming together and just having a good time and stuff. It was really neat, like from a artistic standpoint, to see like the whole city glowing in orange. Like there were places that changed their colors up to be
Yeah.
glowing orange, and like the whole stadium one night. It was neat because like different people who were like photographers that I follow here in town like had their drones out because they have license to do that. And
Nice.
so you get these awesome shots of like, you know, skyscrapers and all kinds of like the stadiums lit up and things.
Yeah.
One of the big skyscrapers downtown, they turned on all the lights and turned off the ones that they needed to make it say Who Day on the side of the skyscraper, which was really cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
But just stuff like that was a lot of fun. So, and then I heard a really funny story. So Saturday, my dad came into town because my son's birthday was on Valentine's Day, and so they came into town. We did a bunch of Bengal stuff. There's one of the game balls they gave to a local brewery close to me, so I took my dad over there so he could get a picture with the game ball, which he was like a kid in a candy store over there.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying that at this place that like apparently like Jamar Chase bought a house off of somebody that they knew or whatever. And then like Joe Burrow was like, I want to live next to you, and like walked down the street asking people if he could buy their house. And apparently like somebody agreed to it. So he bought a house on the street. And then I think Sam Hubbard, who's like one of the other guys on the line, like he bought a house on that street too. So there's three guys, they all live like next to each other basically. And it's just something you don't hear about very often. That kind of thing. It's just this camaraderie of these young football players.
Yeah. Yeah. And potentially if they're young, their first house, and you buy it next to your teammates, next to your friends. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. So
Cool.
well, and that's the thing with Joe and Jamar. I mean, they went through college together and won a national championship with LSU. So they've got quite the connection there. But yeah, it's stuff like that are cool stories. I thought it was really neat too. Was that Andrew Whitworth won the Man of the Year award for like doing all kinds of volunteer work and things like that, being just an amazing force in the community, and apparently like has been a part of like 35 different like community nonprofit projects out there in the area for LA. And he played 11 seasons for the Bengals before he went out, and he's played 5 seasons for the Rams now, and he's the third oldest player to have played in the Super Bowl at the age of 4 in his 40s. So but for him to win that award, that was pretty cool. He's a really awesome guy. I was sad when they let him go, but it was kind of a weird situation, but it was neat to see him win that award. So yeah.
Can you imagine playing football at all in your 40s? I mean, like actual football, we were going to knock you down, much less playing in the Super Bowl in your 40s, man.
I mean, look, Tom Brady did it all those years too. That's the thing. I mean, but yeah, I couldn't imagine it. I mean, I'm 42 and I feel like I'm falling apart already with all the different crap I've got going on. And so like that was the thing. I saw a guy actually post in one of the other stay-at-home dad groups. It was like, hey, I turned 40 on Saturday. What should I be looking forward to? And someone was like turning 41. And I was looking through, I was like, someone's like falling apart, like starting to like feel it every morning. Like there's the truth right there.
Yep. You're going to have a good knee.
Well, maybe
this is my good knee. This is my bad knee, but this is my good knee.
Yep. And your good knee is only just a little bit better than your bad knee.
Right. It doesn't hurt when it rains. That's the only difference. The other,
it is the only difference. Right? It's the one that helps you limp with the other one. You don't need crutches because that's what the left knee is. That's your crutch. Oh my goodness. Well, anyway, other than all of that, has and your battle through COVID, how have things been? Are you doing pretty good though, other than all that?
Overall, yeah, doing great. I'm still exhausted. I mean, I get winded walking from the bed to the kitchen. literally. And I'm just like, why can I not breathe? What is going on? But it was bad for me. I didn't get my booster shot. And that's the thing.
Mm,
I think that really, if I'd gotten my booster, I'd have just had a bad cold and walked it off and been no problem. But I've had a lot of lung problems. I get bronchitis a lot, which is just like inflammation, but not an infection kind of thing, not like pleurisy or whatever, but just
yeah.
it gets irritated. And we had a moment, and I'll tell you, and this will sober it up for just a second, but at one point in one day, I looked at Marnie and I said, okay, so we need to think about things. If this goes bad, because we've recently lost 2 family members to COVID over the last year, and it can go bad suddenly, and you don't even know it. It just does. And I said, so where are we going to have the funeral? And that was a discussion that we had, because we were at a point where it could go either way, and we were like, do I need to go to the emergency room because I'm having trouble breathing, and is my oxygen dropping? And fortunately, everything was fine-ish and worked out after time, but it's still, I feel like hammered crap. I really do. But
Dang, dude.
I'm not dead, and I'm very, very grateful. I'm very, very happy thank you for all the prayers and everybody keeping in touch with me and messaging. And it was rough for me. It really was. But again, it's been, I think, summer of last year that I got my vaccines. I got them when they first came out, and then I didn't get a booster. And the only reason I didn't get a booster is I'm dumb. I got everybody else their shots. I got all the kids their shots. We moved up here. I got the dogs her shots. I got everybody going. And even Marnie said, I thought you got your booster. And I'm like, looking at my card, I didn't. So yeah, that made it much worse. I think if I'd had that, I would have had an easier time of it. But that's fine.
And it's interesting though too. Like, you say that that's dumb or whatever, but how many times have we all, as stay-at-home dads and just stay-at-home parents in general, like had that conversation where it's like, I thought I did this, or whatever. It's like, it didn't happen because there were so many things being juggled and it just got missed over. It's like,
and you put yourself last.
So many times. Yeah, exactly. And here's a very good, hard example of where it can go if you are not putting yourself in a place that's not last. Like,
we say it all the time. We've said it on this show.
Oh yeah.
Take care of yourself. Go to the doctor. Get your stuff done. Self-care. And I'm like, dirt.
We're all guilty of definitely, eating some crow on stuff like that. So it's all good.
Perfect.
Hey, at least you came out on the other side. So that's the important part.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah. Well, things have been going pretty good here. Nothing too crazy. So I think the only thing coming up here for us is that Corey's going to have knee surgery for a mass that she found behind her kneecap when they did an MRI. But it's a pretty minor surgery, but still, it's one of those deals where it's like, she's going to be off her feet for a while. So it's pretty wild. Like, she'll be off her feet, surgery on that Thursday, and then on that Saturday, I'm taking Ruby to her first and my first father-daughter dance. So so excited about that. Because she entered school and then wasn't able to do it because of COVID, and so this will be the first year that they're gonna finally do it. So it's gonna be fun. But yeah, so we're doing that. But other than that, things are good, man. And tonight, I'm excited because we've got 3 guests tonight, man. It's going to be a lot of voices about to come on this show. So,
want to give a little heads up of how we got to these guests?
I think you should, honestly, because I feel like you've had the most hand in it.
Well, I know we the first thing is we received a message. It's basically one of our members that wanted to talk about a book his wife is getting published and doing a study for, and his name's Mark Fasano. And I don't know Mark, hadn't spoken to him previously, but he did ask, and I think that's one thing that's a sign of a good member is you'll say, I'd like to talk about this. Where can I talk about it? As opposed to just posting and whatever, because we do have rules against self-promotion. So I really, again, appreciate him doing that. But then after talking with him a little bit, I got really interested in the book, and it's called Can You Help Me Give a Shit? Why so many young people are struggling in school and how to help. And it comes up mainly with teenagers and then also with college kids that they're doing studies with. And they find that the kids are, and the words they use for the book description were disconnected, demotivated, overwhelmed, and uninspired, you know? And I think for me growing up, I always thought of teenagers, even other teenagers when I was one, as lazy. You know, they're just lazy. They're just not going to do their thing. And that's not really what we find is the truth of it. And the book description, again, I think worked very well for me because it says, this book builds empathy for young people by sharing their stories in detail and helping adults who care about them see how those experiences fit within larger themes of human motivation and positive youth development. And when you think about it, like with anybody, like if I knew how to be more self-motivated, I would be doing better at things like I'd be going to the gym more often because I'd know how to get that motivation, know how to put my time in where I need to put my time in, to move myself forward.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's kind of the basis of it. And I'm looking forward to talking to them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're going to take a quick break here and we'll bring them on here and start having that conversation. So we'll be right back. Become a member of the National At-Home Dad Network. It's more than a convention. It's an organization focused on providing advocacy, community, education, and support for households where the dad is the primary caregiver of the children. We do this through our webinar series, podcast series, mental health support groups, and regular online social events. But to do all of this, we need the support of the community. The National At-Home Dad Network is a 100% volunteer organization, and without the generous support of its members and the community around it, but to do all this, we need the support of the community. The National At-Home Dad Network is a 100% volunteer organization. Without the generous support of its members and the community around it, we would not be able to continue the work that we do. Becoming a member gives you access to our library of webinars, as well as past convention speakers' presentations. And yes, with becoming a member, there is some cool swag that you will get. For just $35 a year, you will be provided with exclusive content that only we can generate. And you'll be helping to support an organization that benefits families all around the country and the world by advocating for them, offering them community, and supporting them to grow in their parenthood journey. For those interested in becoming a lifetime member, a contribution of $500 or more can be made to the organization. Not only will you receive everything we've already mentioned, but also a certificate recognizing your status and an exclusive National At-Home Dad coin with our Dads Don't Babysit logo. So, become a member today. And now, back to our show. All right, and welcome back. Thanks for being a part of the rest of the show. We have our guest with us today. We have Mark and Becca, who are couple, and Mark is a stay-at-home dad, and Becca is writing a book alongside with a student named Grace, and we're going to be talking with Becca and Grace a little more later on here in this conversation, but we wanted to first get Mark and Becca's family dynamic and just kind of how things are working during this pandemic and just stay-at-home dad life and all those different balances. So Mark and Becca, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about you guys' self.
Thanks, guys. So the pandemic has completely upended, I think, our family life because, back in the day, Becca used to go into the city every morning and I was with the kids. But now that she's around and available, part of my job is to try to keep our 4-year-old out of her meetings with the CEO and the president and the VPs and all of that, because he doesn't understand the distinctions between working at home. I mean, he doesn't really understand. I explained to him that, people work in an office, and he asked me questions for about 30 minutes about that. He just
thinks it's like a game of Red Rover.
So he's, well, he'd say, like, what's that building? And I said, well, that's an office building. And that's where that conversation went. He didn't really seem to understand. He also didn't understand why he couldn't just walk in there and just start rummaging through the place. But so he's never actually known a world where people go somewhere else to work. He knows that his mother is working, but he doesn't understand why she's not available frequently.
Yeah, he doesn't remember. He's 2 because he's about 4.5 at this point. So I've been at home for like 2 years. He does not
All
remember.
his life, really. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, as far as he's concerned, that's what happens. Everybody just stays in the house. We just live
Yeah.
here. We go nowhere. We do
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
Nobody visits. We go to nobody's house. All socializing happens via FaceTime. You know, like, I mean, that's the sort of ridiculous. Yeah, I wonder sometimes what the
Completely true.
effect is on his brain.
Yeah.
Because the older one remembers, right? The older one remembers
Yeah.
and still has a sense of this being a weird change in how life is supposed to work.
Yeah.
So how many kids do you guys have?
2.
Two.
What ages are they?
We have a 9-year-old,
9 and 4?
9-year-old, and a 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very cool. Yeah, that would definitely be I'm sure quite a difference. I know I have a 9-year-old, and he struggles all the time with like, why can't we do this? Or like his birthday came around and he's like, my sister got to have a party. I'm like, yeah, that's because it was in October. We could do it outside. Like in February, not so much. Like, we're gonna give you a half birthday. So
So how long are you a full-time at-home dad, or you work from home, and how long have you been doing that?
I am a full-time at-home dad.
Nice.
I've been for 9 years,
Nice.
and so when our oldest or when Becca was pregnant with our eldest, we decided that we wanted to have, a parent be at home with the kids. And honestly, we were both working in academia. I was an adjunct professor, and she was an administrator. She just made more money than I did. And so it was a crassly financial decision, which, so we didn't really give a ton of thought to it. I've felt like in the interim that I would recommend that people really think about not the decision to have an at-home parent if you can afford to have one, but really like who is going to do that job.
Mhm.
And really, I don't feel like I asked myself a lot of questions about my temperament and, my particular talents. I think I've been a pretty good at-home parent, but the fact that I didn't really think about it very much still sort of bothers me.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
I think some of us, if we thought about it
Right,
too much, we probably
exactly.
wouldn't do it
It
because
is.
there is so much involved. It's such an on-the-job learning
Yeah,
experience.
But I think things specific to being an at-home dad, I think there are some advantages, not to be stereotypical or anything, but there are some real disadvantages. And I think, part of it, one of them is that, the at-home moms tend to congregate and click with one another, and they will box you out. They're not
Mhm.
at all inviting,
Mm-mm.
and that's fine. I don't take it personally. I've felt badly about any impact on my kids not having social opportunities, because when we go to a playground, I'm with them and all the moms are congregating with their kids, and they're not inclusive
Mhm.
at all, and they never have been. That's not changed over
Right.
9 years. They just, I think they meet up and they want to hang out with each other, and they don't want a dude in the mix.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't care about myself, but I do sometimes feel badly that that's limited
Mhm.
my children's opportunities socially in a way that, if they had an at-home mom, that wouldn't have happened. But that's one thing that I didn't think about.
Yeah, I get
Grace's
that.
I was just going to say Grace's context for you, because I noticed you were sort of making faces like, what? That's awful.
Yeah.
From what I've observed, the 2 reasons that it happens is, one, these women are gathering frequently to complain about their husbands while their children
true. I
run around
overhear
and
that,
play.
yeah.
And if a husband is there, then that kind of ruins the whole vibe. So that's the really obnoxious reason it happens. But the other reason that I have a little bit more empathy for is also the social norms are such that if you're in heteronormative relationships and you're a group of women and a guy is there, all of a sudden there's all kinds of threat. Is he going to start macking on us? Is he looking to go outside
Will
of
my
his marriage
husband be
in a
okay
way
with
that
this?
there is a
Yeah.
safety? Right. Well, my husband, so we've, and an assumption that there won't be shared values or shared norms, that there'll be more to like have to pay attention to or be worried about. I remember when we were still in Florida, it was 2 moms who ran a particular play center that we liked taking Ryan when he was little too. And they had to basically vouch for Mark. Like, I could only go there every once in a while because at that point I was working in the office, and they had to basically vouch for Mark because it was all, other than that, all moms who were there. And they would like almost shut down in this indoor space where you really can't just like you know, you can hear what everybody's saying, right? And that was what you said, that they kind of had to like vouch for you, right? Of like, it's okay, he's a good one, he's not, you know.
They did, because I was the
Yeah,
sleep dad.
he's a good one.
They billed me as the sleep dad because I had done a ton of sleep research, because Becca's sister had a nightmarish situation with her eldest daughter when her daughter was a baby. Gave her all kinds of problems with sleep
Oh,
and everything. And I just was like, I mean, the stories that she would tell us were traumatizing to me, and it didn't even happen to us. So I think we just decided that our kids may not learn how to eat. They may not know how to brush their teeth, but they're going to know how to sleep.
go to sleep.
And so I'd done a lot of research, and so the owners of this play center kind of introduced me to some of the moms as the sleep dad.
Mhm.
And I talked with them, about stuff that I'd learned. That was an in, but it wasn't. I don't know that it moved the needle a ton, but so I had to have a skill. In other words, to even
Right.
be presentable, I had to have like a specific.
Yeah, it's a very common thing, and we run into it all the time. We have dads all the time talking about it, and the lack of community and the isolation is another part of it. But I mean,
Yeah.
I've been to the playground and had moms kind of like, and I'm like, I'm not here to take your kids. I brought my own kids. I have 4 kids
Yeah.
with me. I'm not taking any more home. Why are you even
Right.
having a concern with
Yeah.
this? You can have one of mine.
Right.
I'm fine with it. I'll see you tomorrow. But it's really interesting that just walking onto the playground, even if you have kids with you, they just immediately have this thought of, and again, it's all of the dynamics that are involved in relationships and who they are as people and things like that. And it makes it really difficult, really difficult.
Yeah, I will say that it's become more common to see at-home dads. When I started this 9 years ago, now we lived in a different part of the country. We lived in Florida.
In the red part of Florida, like a super red part of Florida.
Yeah, and in a pink. I would say a pink part. Okay, you just listen to her. She knows what she's talking about. There weren't any at-home dads. Our neighbor across the street was confused. They were elderly couple, and they're profoundly confused. Like he didn't hear me right.
Yeah.
And when we moved up here, we live in suburban Philadelphia now, and it's more common to see dads, but it's not the norm by any stretch of the imagination. So it's like it's not unheard of, and we live in a very liberal area. So of course, all the moms are of course supportive, and that's great. And
From
they
a
still
distance, right?
box you
Supportive from a
out.
distance.
From a
Mhm.
distance.
Right, exactly. We love that idea from over here.
That's right. You do that over there and enjoy.
Exactly. We're glad you're doing it. It's very important. No, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So how has writing the book and sort of kind of getting things rolling, how has that played a factor in just sort of like the day-to-day dynamics of your guys' family with this book being written and just your profession, Becca? What's that been like?
I mean, it's hard to find the time, honestly. That is one of the many reasons that I'm delighted to be co-authoring it with you, Grace. Is that there's makes it so that there's more perspective and more to share, because I still need to work my full-time job. I still need to spend time with my kids. So basically, any work on the book needs to happen between 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. On weeknights, or between 2:30 to 4 p.m. on Saturday or Sunday. That's basically it. When the 4-year-old is napping, or when the 4-year-old is in bed already at night. Those are the only options for working on it. And Grace, I mean, of course, you're a full-time student, so it's not like Grace just is like loads of time. She's in an Ivy League school, right? Like it's not like that's a low pressure environment with lots of open time either. So I don't know. For me, it's definitely been about the fact that it gives me a lot of energy. I can't normally do anything thoughtful after 8:30 at night. I've been either with the kids or at work the entire day. And by that point in night, I'm pretty much an idiot. But I'm so excited by the topic and by the chance to really like the young folks that we're interviewing, and the things that they're saying are just, it's energizing because of how inspiring it is to listen to them talk. So that's part of the only way that it happens.
Hearing you say that, I definitely appreciate you giving us the time at this time of night to talk to you.
Yeah, no, if I sound stupid, that's
and
why
we feel
I
the,
blame,
and we
I
feel the
blame,
same way.
my children, and I forgive everyone else for that. But yeah, by the time of being in back-to-back meetings all day, I essentially was in meetings from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. on email until 5:45 p.m. making dinner, getting everybody fed, getting everybody ready for bed, and then hopping onto this call. So, yeah, it's been.
We can definitely understand that. Like both Danny and I's wives are probably in a very similar situation with calls and meetings and things all day. My wife is a manager for in the financial industry, and so she has a team that she works with all day. So she's on Zoom calls and all that all day. And Danny's wife is she an executive?
She's international.
Yeah.
Too. No, she's I don't know where she's up, but she's in human resources. And she does a lot of support for like the people that manage huge, like LAO is Latin American organization. So all of the Latin American countries, and they have one person that handles that, and she handles all of his, not admin stuff, but like HR level. Yeah. So she's a baller for sure, but she's also, 5 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and she's gone, and she's like, oh, well, I got up early. I just wanted to get a call, or I wanted to do this. I have to go. I'm the delivery boy now. I bring her food like most days, or I make sure she goes like, have you had water? Have you had, you get in here, and I'm like, she's like, well, I'm not a kid. I'm like, you're not a kid, but what you are is a highly motivated, highly skilled corporate person who's ignoring their needs. So yeah, I'm going to step in and go get a glass of water, go get a meal, go have, something.
You can be proud of me then. I have my 20-ounce water bottle.
See, I'm the guy who likes, I'll make my wife breakfast, and I walk in and I actually accidentally get on camera to be like, oh, look who's serving her right now, kind of thing.
Mark, I want to know where this is happening. Like these two guys are in the same community.
Oh shoot, Mark, I'm sorry, man.
You guys are making me look like shit.
I thought I saw steam coming out of his ears while we were talking there.
No. All of my kids are in school. So that's the
mine too. So that is the confession. Right? We have older kids in school.
got the pass. Thank God.
Yeah, that gets you out of that little bit of it. So, well, hey, Mark, thanks for coming in and talking with us and giving us insight into what's going on with the family, man. It's great to finally get to actually meet you too. I know we've seen you talk over some things in the group, so it's nice to put a face with the name, and I'm glad to finally get to meet you. I honestly, I hope if it would work out for you to be able to get to come to Home Dad Con out in Phoenix at the end of September. It's a weekend of stay-at-home dads getting together, and it's a professional building for dads. So we'll have lots of speakers and just time to get together with a lot of the guys that are online and just have camaraderie. And it's a good time. We've been doing it for a while. We actually had it here in Cincinnati this past year. I was hosting it. That's where I'm from. And we had about 100 dads from all over the country that came in. So it was a great time.
That's cool. I would love to check that out. Am I allowed to plug my blog?
Yeah, man, definitely. Before you go, sure.
Check it out. We Heart Dad. That's WEHEART dad.com. It's my chronicle of my sort of crazy adventures with our screwed up kids and their screwed up parent.
That's awesome, man. No, definitely.
All right. Thanks, guys. It was great to meet both of you, and I'll see you around in the group.
Sounds good.
All right.
We'll talk soon. I got some resources for you with your blog later. We'll talk.
Awesome. I'd love to hear that.
I'll get you hooked up with some stuff, man. But yeah, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So now we're going to switch gears, and we're going to be talking with Becca Block and Grace Edwards, and they are co-writing the book that is not out on shelves just yet. It's still in the works on some different areas, but it's Can You Help Me Give a Shit with an apostrophe. There's like a little mark in there. So, but we'll say it because it's a podcast and that's how we do things here. And I love it. It's a great title, honestly, very catchy. I feel like if it was on the bookshelf and I walked in, it would stop me in my tracks and I would have to figure out go see what it was. So kudos on the title. But welcome to the show. Grace, you've gotten to kind of be a fly on the wall during all of that there in the back, probably wondering whether or not you want to eject right now from talking to us, but I'm glad that you bring our age demographic way down coming on, and it's good to have you.
Yay. Thank you for
Definitely.
having me.
So we were talking a little bit about you when you were standing there. So you go to an Ivy League school. Tell us a little bit about who you are, like where you're going to school at, and what you're going to school for.
Yeah, I am a first year at the University of Pennsylvania. My major is health and societies, which is kind of like public health for other universities. But I'm a pre-med student, and I am hoping to do a minor in journalistic writing. So yeah, I'm originally from Maryland, but my dad and I moved out to Philly suburbs this past summer.
Okay, awesome. And Becca, what is your title, and what do you do outside of writing?
My full-time employment, I'm the Assistant Vice President of Innovation and Improvement at Springboard Collaborative, which is a literacy-oriented nonprofit that's headquartered in Philly but nationally based. So we work with schools all around the districts, really all around the country.
Awesome. Very cool.
Nice.
Like I said, you guys, Mark had reached out, said that you guys had a book, and we started talking about different things. I'm curious, where did the connection take place between a student and someone working in the nonprofit industry? Like, how did that all come about? Because seems like there's some puzzle pieces that need to be put into place for this to all kind of connect and make sense.
Yeah, so I used to be a professor. That's part of where I first got my real love and passion for working with basically anybody age 14 to about 22, because I had a lot of dual enrolled students in the schools where I taught. And Grace's dad, who is also a former professor, and I happened to live on the same block. And we met and we're talking about, being recovering academics, and what we missed and didn't miss about the classroom. And I mentioned that I had been a writing professor, and he said, "Oh, my daughter is interested in, she's minoring in journalism. I bet she would want to talk to you." And so we ended up having a conversation. This is, quite sometime last year, having a conversation at a block party, actually. And in the midst of that conversation, Grace was talking about some of the things that she had found, moments that she'd found most inspiring and most frustrating in high school and in college. And the themes that she was talking about, without me having told her any of the research that I'm familiar with on adolescent motivation and positive youth development and any of those kinds of things, were just lining up perfectly with the exact same things that I've heard coming from the young people that I've worked with, or had the privilege of working with other colleagues who are working with young people. The same themes come up over and over again. And I had already put together the idea for this book and knew that I wanted to start interviewing people. And I asked her, like, "Hey, can you be the first person that I interview? What you're talking about aligns perfectly with exactly this content that I think would really be helpful for any adults who care about people in this age range and are just baffled about, like, what is going on? How do I help them? They simultaneously feel really motivated by some things and totally demotivated at other moments, and really deeply apathetic at some times. But then I see this spark that I want to nurture, and like, what do I do? How do I do that?" And I think that this framework is really helpful. And Grace was wonderful and gracious, delightful person, and said, "Sure." And what followed was like a very long conversation. We talked for like 2.5 hours, didn't we, Grace? It was something ridiculous. I'm surprised that my phone kept recording the whole time. And then talked further as I, shared the notes and I was like, "Do you want to do this with me? You want to be a journalist." And you were talking about the reason you want to be a journalist is because you want to help the communities that you care about. And that's the same purpose of this book. Like, do you want to do this project together? Because I think it would benefit from having a young, not just young people's voices being interviewed, but a young person helping to shape the way that we frame it, talk about it up front. And fortunately, she said yes. So so that's how, I don't know, Grace, anything you want to add to that origin story there, but that's my take on it.
Our origin story. I love it. I don't have anything else to add. I think you pretty, like you hit it on the spot. I had really struggled a lot during my first year at Penn. Not first year, my first semester at Penn. Part of it was like finding the motivation to want to learn again, especially like after this pandemic. And then like also trying to figure out different strategies of learning again, and like figuring out how to learn, and just kind of navigating and adjusting to the pace and environment of Penn is it's a topic on its own, but that was part of the reason why I was so interested in doing this book, because I know that my peers were also struggling with this at other universities, and it wasn't just a me thing. It was definitely my generation after this pandemic. So
that's fantastic. I have to say, I really love it. And reading like the synopsis that you gave us too, it seems like there's a lot more, because when I look at it right now, like my oldest is 15 and he's doing okay. He's not exactly the most motivated person, but we're working with him. But it's still those kind of things where he does just get inexplicably unmotivated, just won't do an assignment and just leaves it and just does not come back to it. And just being kind of overwhelmed sometimes. He's in some AP courses and what have you, and he wants this for himself, and he wants this college career that he has in mind. He wants to be a veterinarian, and he knows what he needs to do, but then some days he just stops. He just loses whatever he had going forward. So, for me, I'm looking at it, and I talk with a couple other parents I know that have teenagers, and they talk about, my generation and probably the generation before me, which was the baby boomers, was a lot of, well, you're just a lazy teenager. You're just lazy. And it's really not that at all. And I've learned that so well but talking with other ones and talking about how COVID has, exhausted a lot of children. And I apologize to say children. I'm an old man. So, people in their 20s and younger to me, but also has kind of traumatized them and has just pushed them into a place. But from reading the synopsis, it's a lot more than just like right now in COVID, that this is kind of an ongoing thing. And I'd like to learn a little bit more about that, because of, what your view is on, say, education and our educational system and how that's causing issues.
Yeah, so the nonprofit before the one that I work at currently was focused on high school students primarily, and on the mindsets and skill sets that especially high school students who are in chronically under-resourced, systematically deprived school systems, neighborhoods, communities, right? The young people who had experienced the most amount of trauma from being in across intergenerational poverty and all those kinds of things. And the effects that has on just the effects that has on just diminishing your sense of what's possible, right? And this well preceded COVID, it has massive effects. And what that nonprofit did that really inspired me was why I gave up tenure. I'd been a tenured professor. I worked for them as a consultant, and I was so inspired by what they were doing and what I saw the impact being with young people, that I was like, that's it, I'm out. This is what I want to go support. Is that they would put folks that they called dream directors into schools. And the job of those folks was just to be there to hold the space for a greater level of possibility. They would expose students to opportunities they'd never seen before. They would bring in speakers, and they would bring in political or activist opportunities, or they would bring them out to arts encounters or other cultural encounters. And suddenly you would start seeing these young people who had no engagement, who thought school was useless, who thought their future had no shot at anything useful or interesting, and that they were just going to replicate exactly what they'd seen in the communities around them, and didn't have any sense of hope, suddenly start to have dreams. That's why we called them dream directors. And the whole idea was to provide people who could actually then support you. Like, okay, if you have this dream, if you want to become a veterinarian, now that you're seeing that that's a possibility, or if you want to even just make this change in your school, then now you got to build the skills and the mindsets that it takes to persist over obstacles, to be able to figure out budgets, to be able to make project plans, all those types of both tactical and kind of more intangible things. But in order for any of that to happen at a foundational level, first, you have to have a relationship. You have to have authentic relationships within that context, or you're never going to feel enough safety to open up and even consider that there's some kind of potential or possibility or anything like that. It has to have that safe space for that like baseline foundational need. And then you have to feel like that you can make choices that matter to you. You have to be able to feel like, well, if I make a choice, if I want to lean into doing something to help change my school environment, or to become a veterinarian, or to become a medical journalist, Grace, I'm stealing from you now. You have to believe that you actually, your choices will allow you to go in that direction. And then you have to believe that you either have the skills you need to do that, or that you're capable of building them. And if you don't have those three things happening in any context that you're in, inside school or outside of school, you're not going to be able to sustain motivation. The kind of extrinsic motivation that is like, I'm trying to avoid this punishment, or, oh, I want to get this reward, will only last for really short periods of time. And it's really exhausting and taxing to our bodies and our minds. And so to me, the effect of COVID, I look at all of this positive youth development stuff that I was involved in well before COVID and learning about through both direct research and reading all kinds of secondary research. And then you look at the impact of COVID and you go, of course, it's way worse now. Of course it is, because what you just did was systematically deprive people from access to their authentic relationships, because now the way that everybody could engage was over screens. Then you decrease their sense that they could have skills, because suddenly we all needed to learn a whole new set of skills about how to do all this stuff through screens. And you decreased any sense that you were able to make meaningful choices, because suddenly everything was just this reactionary place. And you massively increase the amount of stress, which means that any of that ability of extrinsic motivators, either fear-based or reward-based, to motivate you just doesn't, it's like, it would be like if somebody goes, oh, I'll give you $100 if you come, and I'm dead ass tired because my 4-year-old has had me up for all night for 3 nights in a row. I don't care how much I would love that $100. You're not going to get me off the couch. I'm exhausted. I'm depleted. There's nothing left for me to go after that kind of motivation for. It has to be things that fill the bucket. I just went on a little bit of a rant, so I'm gonna stop talking now.
No, it was great. That was fantastic. And you can feel the passion, which is what I mean, it's obviously you changed careers because of this passion you have for it.
Well,
so,
in that,
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Brock.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I love it, Becca.
No.
That was awesome.
Well, and that, yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, like, it's great everything that you're saying, because it's bringing a lot of just like insight into the way that you're going about just researching these things. Like, you're putting all the pieces together. But it brings out a question for me is like, this is more of a question towards Grace, really, because I'm kind of curious, like, out of what Becca is talking about, and also about just the research that you guys have been doing together, like, one, what would be like your top takeaways from what you're seeing out of that? And then how is those things that you're getting, like, how's that like influence the way that you think about education, whether it be like your past education or your present education? And then I'll just throw in a third little one here for you. But with that all connected, how do you see those things coming together to be able to touch and talk to parents who are trying to figure out how to get their kids to be motivated, or even how to like just meet them in their motivation? I know that's a lot. If you have to ask me as we're going along, be like, I didn't remember any of those things, like, just stop me. Like, Brock, like, can you tell me? I'm totally fine with that. I am a horrible interviewer when it comes to just throwing questions.
I think this is great. I have to say though, I'm so used to being on the other side asking questions, so it's a little weird responding to the questions and having to come up with answers on the fly. But I think some of my major takeaways from the interviews that we've done and from just like working on the book, it's really just confirmed everything that I have understood about my education, the education system, and the flaws of the education system. There's so many. And while I'm super grateful for my education from Maryland, and also the school that I'm at right now, I'm so grateful. There are a lot of flaws, and a lot of those flaws are not only systemic, but also personal, in how we treat young people and how we treat like our generation. Similar to what Becca had said earlier, I just always feel inspired by my peers who are doing similar things or have done similar things that I have done in previous years. Wow, major takeaways. I think the biggest takeaway is something that I have always known, and it's that we need to have this intergenerational connection. I feel like in recent years, my generation has maybe not been the kindest to baby boomers and those who are older than us. But at the same time, it's also the same reaction that baby boomers have for us, right? And I just think that there's just so much wisdom from previous generations, and also wisdom from my generation. You know, our generations are just so vastly different in how we communicate, but also how we view the world. how we view politics, how we view like social issues. It's just such an interesting progression. And I just think that it's super important to be able to share that information. That legacy knowledge is what my dad would call it, between our generations, and be able to kind of build upon that wisdom. It can only get better, hopefully, right? So those are kind of the major takeaways. There are a couple other questions. Sorry, could you repeat them?
No, yeah, totally. So based on that, how has that like influence? You're talking about a little bit of actually like how it influences like the education side of things for you, but like what do you want from the writings that you and Becca are putting together for parents to be able to take that? Like, what's kind of like the goal or the target with talking to parents about this subject?
I would hope that parents and adults would just be more empathetic to our generation. I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again, that there are just so many distractions, and just so many different factors that impact my generation. Not only technology is a huge thing, but also, like I said, how we communicate, and how we see ourselves, how we see others. So I just hope that it's just such a vague phrasing of words, but I just hope that parents and teachers would be able to empathize with the things that we're going through, and hopefully we'll be able to engage with us in helping us develop like our way of thinking about the world.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Well, I think too, like you're talking about like technology and communication and stuff, and it is so vastly different. I mean, I know like when I was coming into college, the internet kind of had just sort of like kicked into gear. Like I had just gotten like my first email address and stuff like that. And it's like, and it's like now, like, I mean, yeah, I'm 42 and I got my first email address when I was like 16. So like 1996. So it's kind of weird how like that's all sort of played out. But I say all that just from the standpoint of, when you talk to younger people, sometimes a lot of older people like joking, and they're like, you have no idea what it was like to not be able to like know, like what the weather was like without, checking a newspaper or something, or, if you wanted to find out if somebody was home or whatever, like you couldn't just text them, like you had to call, and sometimes you got a busy tone or whatever. And you have like the jokes of all the different, like, this is what the internet sounded like when you like signed on, that kind of idea. And it's like, you don't have any of that anymore. It's like you're immediately connected and stuff. And so there are these like vast disconnects with how that sort of is and things. But I think on the whole, there are times where I look at the younger generation and the things that they are juggling with technology, and I'm a part of that mindset. It's so funny because like I'm serious, like for 42, like I am very much involved in a lot of social media, doing all this different stuff. And when I run up beside someone who's younger, shut up, do not do TikTok dancing. There's more going on TikTok than dances, I tell you. Oh my goodness. So he gives me so much crap about it. No, it's okay. But seriously though, like the thing with it is like you guys are you're multitasking all these different like other things coming at you, and it just seems like this floodgate. And so as far as where we're like, oh, like they're so crazy, like all these different things, like at the same time, it's like I envy you for the fact that it seems like the younger generation has just grabbed onto this idea of like, I can do multiple things at once. Like you see some people who are younger, like they're watching TV, listening to music, and like on their phone all at the same time. And you get somebody who's like, are you watching that? And like, yeah, I'm watching it. And I'm also taking, like, my wife and I are really bad at that actually, even though we're older, but still, yeah, I mean, that to me, it's just all wrapped up into kind of the stuff you're talking about, is just this idea of having to sort of switch the mind as to what's going on. And with that though, like motivation is definitely something that can not only get after the younger generation. As I was like reading through like just the different excerpts and things that you had sent over to us, I battle with motivation. I mean, there are lots of things that I want to do. There are things that I am passionate about, and there are times I'll get going with it, and it just, the well dries up real
Yeah.
quick. And so that's something that happens even later on in life with stuff. But with the fact that you are pre-med and just getting started with your college life and very much young adult life, how do you come out of that dry well? What are you doing when you feel like you're not motivated with the things that you'd like to be doing?
Yeah. Oh my. What a heavy topic. Actually, before
Always get one good one
I
in.
actually want to kind of address some of the things that you had said earlier. First, I think you are more active on social media than I am. I currently actually have no social media, so I think you're winning in that area. But you touched on something that made me think about a lot of the things that my generation is juggling with, right? And I would argue that if you see me looking down, I'm like writing notes so I don't forget.
You're a journalist.
Yeah, you're a journalist. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
As a writer, or I want to be writer at least. I applaud you. I'm like, oh, look, pen and paper. That's awesome. Go for it.
I would argue that we have always had to deal with a lot of these issues of racism, misogyny, body issues. It's just a lot more heightened now with technology. There's TikTok. You talk about TikTok. There's always so much information and just like decomposing like these dense ideas of like like the female gaze or like male gaze, like different social issues that you normally wouldn't hear about those things on the news or any of those outlets. So I just kind of those were kind of the thoughts that were coming in my head when you were speaking. Wow. In terms of bouncing back, yeah, that is something that I think about often, especially now. It's really hard. It's really difficult. And I say this with a smile on my face because I know that it's worth it. I think in high school it was much easier because you knew what the end goal was. Now, for me, sometimes it can be really difficult to keep that in mind, especially with, like you said, there's just so many, we're just bombarded with so many things, especially at Penn. There's just so many pressures that are just building upon you, either external or internal. So like I'll say this, like I just got my grade back from my chem midterm that I had like last Monday. And I did really well on it based on my previous grades from last semester. And I was really proud of it this morning. And then I came to class and I started hearing other people talk about their grades, and their grades were so much better than mine. And then after class, I just felt so discouraged. And I just had to remember that it can be really hard to bounce back. It can be really hard to not get discouraged and feel like you are incapable of succeeding or whatever your definition of success may be. But I think a lot of the times that what helps me is just finding progress in another area and building that confidence. Sometimes I may need to take a break from chem or whatever subject that might be and work on something that motivates me or encourages me a bit more. So like I will switch to working on the book, or I'll switch to working on something for my health and societies class, something that is a little bit more enjoyable and not as dense as chemistry. But that's just an example for myself. But I think those are kind of things that help me when it's hard to bounce back. I think also just talking to my dad, and it's just the thing, like that intergenerational wisdom, talking to my dad really helps. And he's like really close by, and he really is just like a phone call away. So a lot of the times he's able to give me that encouragement to keep going when it gets hard.
Awesome.
I will say, so real quick, and I'm going to throw it to Danny and let him ask some questions too. But I have to say, like, just the way you talk about your dad and reaction, like, no joke, just to kind of give you a little flash forward to the future for things. But honestly, like as parents, like that's the one thing that all of us sort of like hold really hard, like really tight in our heart, is that we will have that kind of close knit relationship with our kids as they move on through life. And it changes, you know, I mean, like when you're in the house, like we're watching over and you're protecting. When you leave the house, it's more of a like, okay, we're in an advisory type role type thing. And it's like, for us, it's like our heart just like wells and bursts every time you call up and they're like, hey, like I just need to ask you this, or I just want to tell you this. And you're like, oh my gosh. So although your dad might not tell you that, honestly, that's what's going on with him. And I see Becca's face lighting up too. And so I can tell she's in agreement as well. But I just wanted you to know that like it's great to hear you to talk about your dad.
Yeah,
like
I talk to my dad every day, every morning, every evening.
Nice. Hey, I'm 42 and I still talk to my parents almost on a regular basis as well. So I understand that connection.
It is fantastic. And you can tell too with who you are now in college and being an adult and out on your own. And we don't look at you and go, well, this is somebody's child. You know, this is just another adult out there making their way through the world. But you can absolutely tell when you talk about not only hit your relationship, but also just the way you look at life, that there's somebody there that's been giving you this guidance, you know, and this reliance that you can, you know, kind of lean on them and like, okay, this is getting a little bit of a struggle. And this is that person. And it's wonderful that it's your parent and that it's your dad. And I want to make note of a wonderful thing that you said, and being that you're looking to be a medical journalist and journalist in general, you did very well, I think, for all of the verbiage that you used and the words that you used, even though it was kind of extemporaneous and spur of the moment. I think you did great, just for what that's worth. Because one of the things you said is, and it's very inspiring to me, is the wisdom of your generation. And then the wisdom of older generations, whichever generations that might be. We have the typical, you know, memes mindset of boomers versus millennials kind of thing. And that's not really what we're looking at necessarily, but the fact that all of them have their own wisdom. All of them have their own thing that they are better at or more experienced at. And I love that you brought that up too, because it's for both sides of that equation, is being able to look at the younger generation. Because a lot of times we do, we're going, you're just a kid. What do you know? No, that's not at all the reality of it, because you're an adult. You know, you're out on your own. I know you call your dad a lot. That's fantastic, but you're doing all of this. You know, you're living your life, and you're the adult in this situation, and you're writing a book, and that's just awesome in itself. But then it's a book that's going to help build empathy towards the stories of other young adults and children in high school that are going to need that someone to look at them and say, well, why are they doing this? Oh, it's because they're dealing with this, and this in our school systems. This is going on. And I applaud you really for everything that you've said, but that's definitely the wisdom of the generations has really touched me personally. So
I just want to share in relation to this. So Grace asked one of this is a standard interview question, but it was Grace who came up with it. So I want to give Grace the extra credit there of asking the question of what is something you wish of, you know, the young folks that we interview, what is something you wish your teachers or parents knew about you or your peers? And one of the answers from one of the students who really inspired me. So first he, you know, kind of comically said, shit's hard right now, y'all. Right. But then he said, here's the thing. Student problems are just adult problems for younger people. The issues and problems adults face and that students face are the same. It gives the same anxiety and stress to students as it does adults. Just because they're young doesn't mean they aren't aware and they aren't engaged and that they aren't facing really serious issues in their day-to-day lives. So acknowledging that and understanding that students have their own lives, thoughts, and opinions, and are their own people and deserve to be treated with respect and empathy. And that doesn't go away just because they're young. A lot of them do bring a lot of intelligence and wisdom and do care a lot about their education, whether they show it or not. At the end of the day, it's hard not to care about something you're spending 40 hours a week or more doing. So coming from a place of empathy and wanting to hear students out that you would give the same way you would give to anyone else is really critical. It's your step zero to fixing a lot of the problems you see in education and understanding more about what's happening. Oftentimes parents might feel disconnected from their kids, and a lot of teachers feel similarly, but just working with them first and coming from a place of not wanting to lecture or immediately make change and fix it, but a place to really hear them out and understand. talk to them, ask what they're thinking about and worried about, what they're spending their time doing, why they're spending their time on that, and if they do care. Because oftentimes when students say they don't care, they actually do care a lot. It's just not about the thing they think you're asking about. And it just really struck me. I mean, this is an 18-year-old, y'all. He's not even graduated high school yet. And it just really struck me. I bolded it. That's why I could re-access it so quickly. Because I think especially that point of like, when someone says, I don't care, apathy is a very natural and actually pretty useful defense mechanism against being disempowered, right? If you are systematically deprived of meaningful choices all the time, one of the students we talked about, we asked her the most engaging moment. And actually the first thing that came to mind was the first time she got in a class and the adult leading that class said, you all don't have to ask me. If you need to go to the bathroom, just go to the bathroom. Think about that for a second, right? Think about the agency over our bodies and how, as 40-something-year-olds, like all of us except for Grace are, how humiliating and dehumanizing it would be if we had to ask someone every time. If in my work day, I'd be in a problem because having birthed 2 children, I got to run to the bathroom about every hour. That'd be a real problem for me, right? If I had to make that visible, if I had to ask permission. And so if we think about the level of autonomy that we take for granted and that students in school are consistently stripped of without even thinking about it, without even thinking about why we're doing it and what the effects are, and the effect that has of like, I feel like we have this cultural narrative just like, oh, teenagers, you know, they're just whatever about things, or they just don't care, or they're so apathetic. And it's this very judgy kind of narrative rather than stopping to be like, why? Why would a large swath of people for a certain period of time in their lives all consistently become apathetic? Is it possible that there's something going on that's not just, oh, hormones, right? That would drive that apathy. And so when you're asking before of like, what do you hope parents get out of this? What I hope I get out of this as a parent who will have a teenager soon, and as an aunt who has had a number of teenage nieces and nephews that are now adults, is that reminder of how easy it is to only occupy your own position and be like, well, I'm clear on what you should be doing, and I'm clear on what would make your life better. And this has been my job as your parent, is to make sure that your life was safe and protected and getting better, et cetera, when you're younger, and to not make that pivot. That's what I'm hoping it will do. Honestly, if I'm like, the part of me that's writing it for myself is like my own reminder that in a couple years, when my kid hits high school, I want to make sure that I am engaging with him in a way that is, first, let me listen and seek to understand, rather than first, let me bring my agenda to this conversation about what you should be doing with your life and how you should be feeling and what you should be doing about it. So anyways.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I was like, what you're talking about is something that I was very much like eye open to when everything happened with George Floyd and the Black Lives Movement really like bursted onto the scene here in this little area where I live. That whole movement was actually like spurred on by high school kids here in the area. And oh my goodness, I went to a rally. I went just to take photographs. Like I just wanted to see what was going on and just take photographs and just, you know, be there in the moment. But man, these kids got up and just started talking in ways I was like, these aren't kids. Like these are adults. Like the way they're talking, the way they're presenting themselves. I was just like, the title of your book, can you help me give it? It's like they were doing that. Like they were giving everybody a reason to care about what was going on. And it was amazing to see this rally of people that came around, and you get certain people like, oh, like they're young, what do they know? And other people turn around and be like, are you listening to them? Like, are you actually listening to what they're saying? Because if you're not, like, you're completely missing the point. Like, these are not just kids that are just trying to get attention for themselves. Like they're actually sharing what they experience, and they're telling you what they're experiencing right here in our town. Like open your eyes type of deal. It's like, so I completely agree. Like it's amazing. Like the things that you're talking about there with the stories. I am curious though, like, so, and you kind of, you started to talk about it a little bit, but besides the story of the young man that you had talked about, like what other like inspiring stories are you hearing from young people while you go through and research this book?
There's like a weird paradox, right? So referenced in the piece that I sent you, and it's part of what we're trying to navigate in the book, that sort of like high achievement overwhelm and disengagement apathy are, from what I'm seeing, and Grace, I'm curious if you see the same way, two sides of actually the same coin. It's not like, here's the high achieving students over here, and here's the disengaged, apathetic students over here. It's actually two different reactions to the same set of circumstances, right? So talking with the student who I was quoting a moment ago, basically he is in a dual enrolled program where he's simultaneously getting the first 2 years of his college degree done while finishing up his high school degree. And the reason that he's doing that is because he was so bored in his first year of high school that he just started going, I know I'm not going to be able to deal with this. I know that I can't stay in this environment where I don't have any meaningful choices and I can't do any of the things that I care about. And so sought in that kind of like high achieving sort of way, like what's another option I can go do in order to get out of this? And then other students whose stories I hear and talk with, or hear my colleagues who are working with them talk with and share, it's a like, I don't see any other options, so I'm going to shut down. I'm going to be apathetic. I'm going to cheat to get the grades that I need to, because all of this is meaningless and stupid. And why should I waste my time? Right. And it's like a whole different perspective to flip from what's wrong with you that you would cheat to why would you cheat? Why is it so valueless, the learning that you might be doing, that cheating is the more appealing option, right? Like it's two different reactions to the same set of circumstances of, I don't see where this is meaningful for me. I don't see where this is relevant. I don't see a reason for me to be here and care, because there's not any people here who care about me. And none of this learning applies to anything that I care about for later on in my life. And you're not giving me any meaningful choices. So I'm checking out. Or the high achieving response is, well, all of that, okay, I'm going to find an extra thing I can put on top of this in order to make it meaningful. And so, Grace, I would love if you wanted to talk about, I don't want to reference people's first names since we haven't checked of who wants to be anonymous versus who not. But the young woman we talked to who talked about the Minority Scholars Program, right? And I view her as being sort of a like, well, this is not enough in and of its own. High school is not enough to be engaging for me. So I'm going to add something to it, right? That then became very engaging. And lots of what she shared was really inspiring. And I wondered if you wanted to share some about that.
Yeah. So yes, a lot of what she shared was deeply inspiring. She was a part of this program for students of color. And part of what they did in this program was create professional development meetings and trainings for teachers, so they can equip them and teach them how to talk about race and be comfortable talking about race in the classroom. And so it was completely student-led. The sponsors of the program allowed them to come up with these different activities and lead different conversations. And she talked at length about how it was empowering to her to be able to shape the minds of the adults that will be teaching her, or even just adults that will be teaching her generation. And the ability to be able to like change someone's mind who may not have been empathetic towards students of color previously. So yeah, just a little quick synopsis of what her experience was with the program.
How many people have you already interviewed, and are there more to be interviewed, or kind of what's going on with the process of the book? Where's that at?
Yeah, there are more to be interviewed. We have sketched out, so what you saw in the book proposal was based on the common narratives that had already arisen from experiences that I and some of my colleagues who've been working with young people for a couple decades have seen, especially in recent years. And now what we're doing is going back and actually engaging in direct, more in-depth conversations with young people who want to engage in those conversations. So if anybody knows a young person in high school or college who's like, I would really love to be interviewed about either the reasons that I find this whole thing freaking miserable or what I've done in order to make it not miserable, either of those types of stories I think are really powerful, and we are looking to add a few more. So thank you for asking that, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to get that plug out there in case there's anybody else who wants to be part of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, if that's what I was thinking. If there's an email address or something that we can post in the show notes to where somebody can reach out to you guys and make that interview happen, definitely send it to us. So that way, we can help you along with that. Cause we have plenty of dads that
Right.
have kids who are older and like Danny was saying, his is 15. So, I mean, there's lots of those. I was thinking of Al Watts' son, Miles, who actually presented at Home Dad Con this year. And he's getting ready to go off to college here pretty soon. So, he might be somebody that might be interested in it as well. But we really appreciate getting to talk to you about this. I'm excited for when the book comes out, and honestly, when it does come out, like, we'll have to have you back on so that we can talk more about it and really get it pushed out there for you. And we'll stay in contact, because I definitely want to know when that's going to happen. Because like I said, one, I love the title. Two, the topic is on point with everything that's going on here, and I really wish the best for you all for the research you're doing, and hopefully a publisher catches wind of this and grabs you guys up, because it's I think it's just a topic that up until the point where it came in front of us, I never really had even thought about it. So since then, I think that it's something where it's like, man, there are other people who are going to feel the same way. Like, I never thought about that. And then they're going to hear this, and hopefully it's going to, jaw them in a way that's open their eyes to some other things going on. So
that's what we found. So I really appreciate hearing that as well. And I realized that quickly, just in case you want to weave it back in, you should explain the title, where that came from, because it's not my words or Grace's words. It comes from a student who was in a class of one of the colleagues that I was talking about, where she was trying to teach executive functioning skills. And the students just they were students who wanted to get better, right? That whole motivation piece. And she wasn't incorporating motivation into the explicit conversation. And she's like, you guys say you want to get better at succeeding in your classes, but you're not practicing any of these skills I'm teaching you. Okay, what's going on? What is it you want? And she asked all of them to write it down anonymously and hand it in. And what was on one of the students' papers, she said, actually, a lot of them had different variations of it, but this one put it the most succinctly and clearly: can you help me give a shit? I would like to give a shit about school, but I just don't, and I don't know how to. And it just really struck me when she shared that story with me. I was like, that's the book. So that was the original inspiration for the book. I was like, that's the book that we need to write, actually, is that. Is inspired by that exact thing of like, I'd like to, but why don't I? And what can I do about it? And when you realize why you don't, why it's so hard to feel motivated, it actually helps provide a lot of the answers of what to do, both systemically for people that want to make systemic change, but also individually for what you can do, within your own just individual life.
Yes.
That's great. Definitely. Well, hey, thank you very much for coming on the show today. And like I said, stay in contact with us, because we want to know and see more as it comes along the line. Grace, good luck to you as you continue on with your semester. Hope everything ends well for you as things move along for you with pre-med. I know that can get pretty intense. I have friends who are in the medical field, so
And tell your dad we're proud of him.
Yeah.
For what that's worth. just tell him. Some two old men on some podcast you'll never hear.
She can just send this to him, and then he can hear it.
You should hear this one for sure. Because then he'll
be like, man, I got to know those guys. All right. Well, hey, thanks so much. And y'all have a great one. And, we'll talk to everybody again next week.
Great. Thanks. Take care.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.